Welcome to Conversations That Count. I thank you for joining us on a weekday evening. Our conventions are coming up, our primaries are coming up, so I want to make sure we are inviting as many candidates as possible in this podcast so you get to know your candidates very well. I am Shriley Kapale, Fairfax GOP Vice Chair of Strategy and Community Engagement. As Republican Party congressional primaries are coming on, I am going to continue to focus on bringing in as many candidates as possible to this Conversations That Count, so we all get to know the candidates' positions on issues that you and I care about. At Fairfax GOP, we are deeply committed to engaging all of you during this congressional primary process. So that being said, if you have any questions for our upcoming candidates, you can feel free to post on Facebook live chat. So I get to all of them, and I'll definitely try to ask our candidates and get their answers for you. Today's candidate is John Henley. John is a veteran, parent, and a conservative running for Congressional District 10. He has been serving his country his entire adult life. John started out as an enlisted aircraft maintenance technician in the Air Force during Desert Storm. When he was fully commissioned into the Air Force, he was assigned to the Space Operations Carrier Field. He served in multiple roles, including Operations Officer and Commander, the Joint Staff, and the Office of Air Force Legislative Liaison, where he helped lead the vision for a sixth branch of America's Armed Forces, the Space Force. In 2019, John retired from the Air Force and has continued to serve in national security, working on classified programs and advising on national security matters. John has 5 children, and 2 of them are actually currently serving on active duty in the Air Force. John holds graduate degrees from Trident University, National Intelligence University, the Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Policy, and was in fact 2015 MIT Seminar Fellow. He's running to represent our proud 10th district. As you can hear from his bio, John is very accomplished. John, welcome to Conversations That Count.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation and some great questions. A couple more days to the primary, and we're running hard.
Awesome. John, you retired just 3 years back, and you could have easily just taken a break, chilled, and rested. Why did you decide to get into politics?
Well, I've always had a passion to serve, and seeing what's transpired over the last year within our country, whether it be inflation, whether it be national security issues, whether it be border security. I had a choice to make. I can either yell at the TV or I could put a target on my back and through faith step forward, and we chose the latter. My wife and I have been out on the campaign trail together. We've met a lot of great people. We've met even some of our fellow candidates and their families, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to continue to run this race that we've been called to run, and it'll culminate on Saturday with hopefully a primary victory and a general election strategy that will defeat Jennifer Wexton.
Awesome. So, John, looks like you owned a small agricultural business, and I'll tell you why I'm focused on that. And you enjoy time on the farm with your animals and gardening and living the dream. So, so what I really liked with the answer that you gave is when I asked about why political life, you didn't go on and on of why politics are important. You started off saying you wanted to serve. I think that's precisely what I see in the candidates. I mean, instead of living the dream, you want to serve, and you got into business of politics. Thank you for willing to take the hit for all of us.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, John, your opponent, I'll focus on Wexton because I always say winners focus on opponent instead of fighting amongst themselves. So let's focus on Wexton. She is actually the co-chair of the Bipartisan Congressional Agri-Tourism Caucus. Not sure if you're familiar with that, but she is. She often, I've noticed her that she often welcomes businesses from Virginia's 10th Congressional District in order to share their perspective on the impacts of agritourism on local economics. Right. And I've kind of heard her spark a discussion about the importance of this as well. So I was kind of curious to know, since you're in that line of business, at least partially after you retire, what are your thoughts on agritourism as a small agricultural businessman yourself?
I think, traveling around the congressional tent and talking with farmers in Fauquier County, Rappahannock, even Western Loudoun, Western Prince William, a lot of land development has stressed small farms. Taxes have gone up, data centers have gone up, and it's hard to just make a living at farmers markets. So being able to venture into agritourism, being able to teach people how to farm, how to cultivate the land, how to almost provide for yourself. I mean, we have a supply chain crisis. Sometimes, and with fuel and everything getting so expensive, it's good for people to learn skills like that. And if you can continue making a living through agritourism, that may help buffer some of the issues we've seen on the agriculture side. Then that's what we need to continue to do. And obviously, we've seen that with a lot of the vineyards in the area. A lot of them sprouted up in the past 10 years. Many of them are doing very well, and I think we need to continue to support their efforts. One thing I do support is consolidating an Office of Agritourism within the Department of Agriculture. Right now, there's like 5 or 6 different offices with information all over the place. It'd be nice to have one office that someone interested in agritourism can go to get that information, so that you're not on the phone 3 or 4 hours a day or waiting for a call back. And one place you go to that helps a small business owner be able to not just earn a living, but allow us to start a new business.
Absolutely, John. I think you're absolutely right. And I think one of the reason I frame the questions is because I want to kind of understand what is Wexton, because I always felt Wexton has always voted on party lines, really doesn't have the deep understanding on issues. So it is very refreshing to see that you're just a candidate still, and you have a deeper understanding of the congressional issues too, and the caucuses they run. And that's the most important thing for me when I'm looking for a candidate. Does this candidate understand as much as the candidate that's already out there understands? So you seem to be in par with what's going on with agritourism. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And you got to be ready day one.
Absolutely. Oh, there you go. Day one is our goal. Day one is like I always say, Garner Youngkin's statement, day one, and he really got into. I say he got his hands dirty on day one for sure.
Yep. And that's what'll happen in Congress, provided the Republicans take over. And I'm blessed enough to represent this district. You will find no harder fighter and no one with the depth of experience that I have to be able to help address some of these issues that are affecting us across the board.
I like fighters. There you go. I love the spirit. So, John, I did review your website and I enjoyed your issues. I mean, there were several issues that you picked. First, Second Amendment, you had pro-life, you had strong borders, national security, you had partnering and respecting law enforcement, education, election integrity. I mean, all the kitchen table issues. But let me kind of focus a little bit on Second Amendment. I think coming from an immigrant background, it did take me a while to kind of get used to the concept of Second Amendment. If you look at 10th Congressional District, there are a lot of immigrants and minorities that may not feel really comfortable. What would you tell those voters about Second Amendment? Although now I'm fully on board with it, I agree with it. I really like to hear from a congressional candidate perspective. What would you tell those people that are really not super comfortable with that issue?
Well, I would first ask them, why did you come to America? Did you come here to escape oppression? Gangs? Was your safety in jeopardy? If that's was your government oppressing its people and its rights? The nice thing about the Second Amendment is it's the People's Amendment that protects the other amendments to make sure our rights are protected across the board. And our rights are God-given; they're not given from government. Does that mean everyone's going to be like the Wild Wild West? No, it doesn't mean that. We've matured beyond the Wild Wild West. But what it does do is it allows the American people to keep a check on government so that they do not become tyrannical and start trampling on our rights. This is our government. This is our form of government, and it won't operate without an educated electorate who understands all the amendments and why they're there.
Yeah. And John, I think you're absolutely right. I said, I think people are starting to get comfortable. I think it's important candidates such as you never fear from talking about Second Amendment and kind of start going at it. And I also will put religious liberty in the same basket as Second Amendment. I said it's a God-given right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen, the government kind of trample on some of those religious rights with vaccine mandates. I have some really close friends who worked for me when I was in the Air Force. A couple of them were pilots. They've spent 16, 17 years of their life defending this nation, and they're being kicked out because of the vaccine mandate. And they wouldn't approve, the Air Force or the DoD would not approve their religious exemption. Even though they're, I mean, as long as I've known, they've been deep Catholics, or one has been a Muslim as well, and they're just getting kicked out for nonconformity. And we need to make sure, as members of Congress, if the Republicans take over, that we pass a bill that allows us to grandfather those people who were kicked out, reinstate them into the same rank, the same job with back pay, so that they, if my brothers and sisters in arms are willing to fight and die for our country and for our Constitution, they need to be afforded those same constitutional rights, and they're not right now. So Congress needs to take a strong stand come January and make sure that they're protected, as well as our healthcare workers, and on and on and on. Because religious freedom is critical. Again, it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. I agree. Thank you for making the distinction about religious freedom. So, John, one thing that I was really surprised about the issues, I think you picked all the right issues for a very good reason. When you're talking about strong borders and national security, do you think we need to focus a little bit on illegal immigration as well? As again, I said, I'm an immigrant, and half of my circle, 100% of my circle is here legally, but half of my circle still struggles with this green card citizenship, whereas when we have illegal immigrants just coming in as refugees or whatever means they come in and get the citizenship in like 2 months, 3 months, when I have 50% of my friends stand in line for the last 15 years. So do you think legal immigration?
I don't think our immigration system is broken, as many politicians say. I think they're just too lazy to enforce the laws that have been passed by Congress. And Congress has the power of the purse, and they can address these things tomorrow. Whether it be the Department of Homeland Security failing to secure the border, you can fence some of their funding to kind of curb some of their behaviors. That's kind of what you do with federal dollars to make sure certain behaviors are encouraged and certain behaviors are discouraged. And right now we have to make sure that the immigrants that are coming in legally are at the front of the line. They've spent a lot of money to be able to come in, and it's taken years for them to get here. And it's taken years for them to try to get their citizenship as well, but they're doing it the right way. And that's the nice thing about a representative government is, it's we the people who invite immigrants to join us, because that way we're one nation with many cultures, but we're still one nation. So we've got to be able to work on new legislation to make sure that the border is secure, because without a secure border, we don't have American sovereignty. Without American sovereignty, we don't have a country. So we've got to make sure people are doing this legally, and making sure they have the right information to be able to make those applications and whatever funding is required at that time. And it's all on statedepartment.gov. Become a citizen. There's a listing of things. So when people say it's broke, it's not. And we can limit some of the time frame it takes for some of our illegal immigrants to come in. And I think that's worth working on. But the illegal immigrants, there's no frontline pass, in my opinion. There's not. There's too many great, what I call new Americans, who've come in and done it first, or did it right, and they are, contributing to the economy. They're contributing to schools. They're volunteering to be coaches. That's what makes America great, and we need to keep it that way.
So, John, I think you offer a very fresh perspective. A lot of politicians say immigration system is broken. And I think sometimes they say that, so they've basically given up hope on fixing it. I think real courageous candidates are the ones that would say, you know what, I'm sure it is slightly broken, but the goal is if you enforce what is actually in the books, then half of our problems will just go away overnight. So thank you for providing the fresh perspective. And I think I want more listeners to understand that our Republican candidates offer legal immigration. They will support legal immigration. They also will enforce it if they come to the office.
Yeah, and we have 1.2 million legal immigrants that are allowed into the United States each year. And those are the people that we need to make sure, the job skills or the job opportunities are there, the educational opportunities are there, because they're taking a risk immigrating from their country to the United States to enjoy the American dream. And I think we have an obligation to make sure that we welcome them with open arms.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. So, John, the 10th Congressional District is extremely diverse from the perspective of races, ethnicity, and also has multiple counties. Who knows better as you're going through the Congressional District? Fairfax County, Fauquier County, Loudoun County, Manassas Park. So while you're campaigning, John, or in the counting, have you noticed any differences in viewpoints on prioritization of issues? Like, does Prince William County has different issues compared to Loudoun County, or the issues are same no matter where you go?
They have been the same. The number one issue that we have talked, regardless of demographic, has been the economy and the inflation. And a lot of the immigrant families that we've talked to in Manassas Park, even up here in Loudoun County, they're small business owners. Some of them are electricians, some of them are HVAC, some of them are remodelers. They've seen the increase of not just gas but materials to be able to ensure that they can finish their job. But that is obviously increased costs for them. It's increased costs for us as consumers. The second issue has been education. We need to get more closer to what Martin Luther King said, where the content of your character, less than Ibram Kendi, who's the critical race theory guy, who says you're oppressed because of your race. We need more of Martin Luther King in these schools and less of Ibram Kendi. But those have been the top two issues that I've seen across the district. It didn't matter what county we were in; those were the two main ones.
Wow, that's good. That's good to know. I think nationwide education has become a priority. That's one thing I said. COVID, it's a blessing in disguise. Right now, we know what they teach.
Yep. And I said the exact same thing, because otherwise we wouldn't have known. And I can give you just a quick story on our daughter. Our daughter went to Brentsville High School in ninth grade. And they're reading this book called The Hate You Give. It's about a little black girl growing up. Her dad is part of the Black Panthers, but she goes to a white school. And of course, there's a shooting of a black kid by a white cop. But the story or the assignment was, write the 10 tenets of Black Panthers and write two paragraphs, or pick one and write two paragraphs on how you could institute that in America today.
Wow. So
we're like, shut the laptop, we're done. Contacted the school. They're like, well, I don't think that's what the teacher meant. No, I think that's exactly what the teacher meant. This was AP English. And she said, I have pretty big left and right limits on how I teach this. And we pulled her out of school. We homeschooled her the rest of the year. And then we put her in Covenant Christian Academy this past September, where she's at right now, because we are not going to subscribe to critical race theory or hate or anything else. I mean, I grew up in a very diverse school called Northside High School in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It was about 80% Black, 10% Hispanic, 10% white. So I grew up just, knowing, but I didn't see racism in there. I'm sure, it probably existed. I'd be stupid if I said it didn't, but I never saw it. I mean, I had friends from all different walks of life, backgrounds. We played ball. We played, we just hung out. That's what we did. And that's what we need to get back to, is just hanging out with each other and learning about different experiences and things, but not based on your skin color, but again, goes back to your character. So.
Absolutely. I think you did the right thing by pulling your daughter. I think you are absolutely right. 100% the teacher knew what she was doing when she gave that assignment. I mean, she's no kid. I mean, she's teaching AP English. They exactly know what they're doing right there. Uh, so John, I was in 10th district. I just got redistricted to 11th district. No
Yeah.
matter no matter what redistricting happened, my traffic and transportation issues have not eased just because I got redistricted. My home is still in the same spot.
Yep.
So as a candidate, I guess my question is, I know for sure traffic and transportation are major concerns, not only for working mom like me, but for everyone living in 11th district. And I know that a world-class transit system will encourage not only job creation, reduce congestion and pollution, but it also promotes Northern Virginia opportunities in Northern Virginia. And I've noticed that Jennifer Wexton keeps talking about transportation solutions. She's been in the office for 4 years. I looked at her website left and right, trying to see if she has proposed any transportation solutions. And other than saying that I'm against tolls, which I think we all should be, I mean,
Yeah, we've seen
I don't see anything coming out of it. What do you think?
Well, they just passed the the infrastructure bill, late last year, 1.2 trillion dollars, but most of that wasn't infrastructure. Let's just be honest. But the issues in Northern Virginia have been, they've been growing for the past 15, 20 years, because as government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you're going to have all these other companies coming closer to that central source. That's where their lobbying firms are. That's kind of how they do their contracts. And we're starting to run out of space. I mean, Prince William County is, we've been fighting for a long time against this thing called the Bi-County Parkway that's going to take up farmland in what's called the Protected Rural Crescent, where I live. Data centers and everything else, going up. All under the guise that we're going to provide money for schools. Well, we always get sold a bill of goods on that. But the transportation issues in the state are more, I think, more of a state issue. Federal can help with with the Department of Transportation and prioritizing what needs to be done within each state. And then those states need to make sure that they have a great federal relationship. And the member actually needs to be in the district. Jennifer Wexton is nowhere to be found in the district. If I'm fortunate to be a member of Congress, I guarantee I will not be staying in DC, all night, hanging out at fundraisers or things. I'm going to be in the district. I'm going to be talking to people, real people, not party people, but people who actually do the job and make each county work. And what issues do they see that I can help alleviate? When I do drive into Washington, that's probably one of the benefits of being this close is you don't have to become part of the swamp. You can actually become part of the solution, not continue to be part of the problem.
Yeah. And also, John, when you're talking about real people, I'm assuming your constituents, are you also relating it to like school board members, board of supervisors, and those people that actually know what is going on?
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those relationships are key. And when I started this campaign, that's one of the first things we did was talk to the various county board of supervisor members to kind of see what issues are they dealing with in their county. And transportation was one of those big issues. Land use was the second issue, because again, we're going to start pushing Washington D.C. further and further out. The other thing we could do is maybe look at relocating some of these big bureaucratic institutions outside of DC and kind of spread them around the United States. Still keep DC as the hub of government as per the Constitution, but I think you can take some of these other entities out in less congested areas and still provide a vibrant economy for Virginia.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What about these tolls on 66 and tolls on Dulles Greenway? Do you agree with those tolls, or do you feel it's necessary evil? We have no choice to live.
I don't agree with them. I mean, I think we're paying $4.50 for gas, $5.50 for diesel. I think we're paying enough for those. And those are, again, always sold under the guise that, this will pay for itself. Well, it only pays for itself because it comes out of your wallet, comes out of my wallet, comes out of our kids' wallet, comes at the expense of the consumer. And you see when those tolls wind up getting congested, that dollar amount goes up and up and up and up and up. Sometimes $30, sometimes $40. And that's not how it was presented to us when it was sold to us that this is a great idea. I live out in Nokesville, so I get on 66 right at Gainesville, and you see all the construction that they're doing because they're bringing the tolls all the way out towards Haymarket. Under the guise, oh, we're gonna solve traffic. Well, you're not really gonna solve traffic when you're narrowing the number of lanes so you can have one express lane into DC. And how much is that going to cost? So no, I'm not a big toll person, but we do have to find a way to pay for the transportation infrastructure that doesn't kill small business, that doesn't kill commuters, and there's got to be a better solution.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. I so wish that if you're elected member, you're going to focus on transportation. I think that's a pending issue that's just not been the focus. And working moms like us, I'm sure there are millions here, struggle. We struggle on a daily basis trying to get our kids on time to basketball games, just get to work.
Yeah, and one accident costs you about an hour to an hour, 15 minutes, in traffic. And I think that's the other part that's going to be key for a member of Congress is being able to work with, Governor Youngkin, and then whoever the new governor is going to be in Maryland, because this is still the DMV, and being able to say, hey, how do we partner up to make sure our constituents, can get to and from work, one, without, breaking the bank, two, make sure they're safe, and three, that we're actually looking at the next potential issue on the transportation horizon.
100%. I think partnering is the way to go because it not only affects us, we are all interrelated humans at this point. So, John, let me take it back again to parental rights. I think we briefly touched on schools. I was meaning to ask you then. So, factually, as much as we've done very well with the Governor Youngkin's race, I still think 10th congressional districts, we have to be able to work with our independent partners and soft Democrats, right? I consider independent voters and soft Democrats as the most reasonable sect of Democratic Party, and I'm willing to work with them, and we have to. In order to agree. But one thing that when I speak to, the reason I say I ran for an office in the past, and I'm always out there in Asian circles, especially in minority communities, immigrant communities, very reasonable people, very hardworking, their values align with us. But one thing that they continue to say, and I just really, I don't think I eloquently debunked what they were trying to say, is that they keep saying Republicans are constantly making efforts to take away local control of school under the name of parental rights. You and I know that's not what we are about. So how do you think we can articulate and say, you know what, we are really not trying to take away local control of schools. We truly value parental rights.
I think that the one thing I've been talking to people is we have to get the federal government out of states' rights issues, and education is a state right issue. So we have to abolish the Department of Education, make sure that money goes back to the states. That way, that money's not only closer to the states, but the people who elect their delegates or senators here in Virginia are closer to that as well. So there's more power at the local level than there's ever going to be at the federal level. So getting rid of the Department of Education, I think, is going to be key to that. The other is we have to make sure we have a parental bill of rights that lays out accountability, transparency, curriculum, where parents can be involved in their kids' education as they should. As the example I gave earlier, I was definitely, as well as my wife, involved in our daughter's education and made sure that she had choice. But we were lucky enough to be able to have afforded that. There's many families who can't do that, so we need to find whether it be tax credits or whether it be grants that allow them that same opportunity for their kids. We want to make sure there is local control. But that local control also needs to give parents a voice at these school boards, and they shouldn't be shut down, as we've seen in Loudoun, as we've seen in Prince William County, and as we've seen in Fairfax, covering up sexual assaults and everything else. There needs to be accountability. There needs to be transparency. And what I like about the word transparency, it has the word parent in it, which means parents have a front row seat, bureaucrats sit in the back. And I will fight hard to make sure that I'm a strong voice on the federal side for that parental bill of rights and for the abolition of the Department of Education, because they do nothing but use that as a bludgeon hammer, where we have to grow an administrative state for all these schools just to comply with all these federal regulations. Get that out, get rid of the administrative state, give that money to teachers, allow them to teach.
Yeah. I think you are getting at something. I think Department of Education should, even if it is not eliminated, at least the bureaucracy should be low, and the focus should be on real education. And just one other thing that I usually tell my own counterparts or my own fellows is that if teachers and administrators want to focus on real education, like teaching math, science, arts, liberal arts, whatever the kid is interested, I am totally okay. I am not going to be out there fighting for my parental rights. But when they start expanding their wings into other stuff is where I start demanding. Otherwise, I'm actually not a very demanding person. I sit back and let them do the job.
Yep, I think we're all that way.
Exactly. So John, what is it that I heard that you do listening tours? Is that something that you kind of go around the campaigns and you listen to issues? What is that?
Yeah, so we'll set up various campaign events and invite people. And I don't give a stump speech. I say, what are your issues? I want to hear from you, because what you have to say is a lot more important than what I have to say. So where are you at in your life? Where are you at, with your family, your faith? And it's basically just hearing their hearts. And that's kind of where our campaign slogan, "Believe Again," came about. So my wife and I, in early January, we were at one of the first stops about 2 or 3 days after we declared my candidacy. We're a great team, 34 years of marriage. She's a doll. But people were kind of disheartened and just down. And, I get in the truck, we start driving. I said, man, people just need to believe again. That our rights come from God. They need to believe again that our country is still the greatest country in the world. And they need to believe in each other, that together through unity, strength, and purpose, that we can make a difference together. And,
Absolutely.
Kind of emotional, sorry. So she looks at me and says, that's our slogan.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing
that's part of this campaign. That has been the heart of this campaign. And it has been awesome, because that's a unifying message. We've talked to a lot of Democrats who are attracted to our campaign because of that. We're not bomb throwers. We're problem solvers. We're solutions oriented, and we're willing to listen to what their issues are without calling names and all the other stuff that you see on social media. And it's been refreshing to many of them. And they said, man, if I can vote for you in the primary, we would, because we're done with the Democrat Party. But we want to find a Republican we can believe in, who stands on faith and family and freedom, who's going to go to Washington, D.C. and do the right things for the right reason and not become part of the swamp. So, that has been the refreshing part of this whole campaign. It's been awesome.
Awesome. That's a great story. And it's kind of funny you mentioned our campaign. That's true. I mean, you can't do anything without your family support. I mean, you're the front face for your constituents, your family, but there is so much more that goes on behind the scenes. John, you received actually great endorsements. Representative Ralph Norman, he's serving the South Carolina's 5th District. For those of you that doesn't know who Jim Bridenstine is, he's a former NSA administrator. Dave Brad, who is a former congressman, and 25th United States National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn. These are amazing endorsements. Did they resonate with your issues, or did you know them personally? How did these endorsements come about?
They resonated with what we've been saying. So, Jim Bridenstine's a dear friend. When I was in legislative affairs, he was still a member of Congress on the House Armed Services Committee, but he was, always interested in space. So when Vice President Pence was leading the National Space Council, those of us in what's called legislative affairs would escort them to some of these events. So Jim and I actually got to know each other when we flew down to Cape Canaveral for one of the national security space events with Vice President Pence. So being able to talk with him, he's a great man of faith, and that's how we got to know each other. And then he became NASA administrator. We still stayed in contact even after I retired. And then we wound up sitting on the same board together for a company called Voyager Space Holdings. That builds an ecosystem, if you will, of space companies that are complementary And then when I called and said, "Hey Jim, feeling led to run for office," he goes, "Hey man, that's awesome." And we spent 3 hours on the phone with that. And then he was friends with Dave Bratt. Dave Bratt is down at Liberty. He's the dean of their business school. Our daughter is going to wind up going there in a couple of years. So we were down there for can't remember what it's called, like an orientation, pre-orientation, if you will, about a month and a half ago. Was able to talk with Dave on that. He said, "Yeah, you've been following the campaign, man." He said, "This is great." He said, "Because I was outspent 40-1 by Eric Cantor, and I won because I had the message." He goes, "You've got the message as well on this." And then and that's when we got his endorsement. And then Ralph Norman, same thing, good tied in with his military legislative affairs officer, was a good friend of mine that we traveled together. And when we found out I was running, he's like, "Hey, I got to get you with my boss, Congressman Norman, because you and him gel on a lot of the same issues, and I think it'd be a good conversation." So we talked, and he endorsed us right out of the gate. And then General Michael Flynn. So my campaign manager, 26-year Air Force veteran, served with another Air Force veteran who was General Michael Flynn's command chief when he was at Defense Intelligence Agency. So he heard about us as well, and he lives in Ohio. He drove all the way from Ohio just to meet us.
Wow.
And say, "Hey, this campaign, there's something different about this campaign than what we've seen on the others." He said, "You got to get with General Flynn." So we wound up driving to Ohio, and we met. We had a great conversation. The endorsement came out, and that's kind of how it happened. It didn't happen because we raised a lot of money. It happened because we actually have a message that wins, that resonates, that brings people together, that is a little different than what other campaigns are doing, and even what they're going to do in the general.
Yeah, John, that's pretty impressive. I always say when somebody is endorsing someone, they're putting their own personal credibility at risk. So if somebody can trust you, especially as accomplished as they are, they've serviced the country, they're endorsing you. Obviously, I think people ought to hear your message out for sure. And I'm glad you're doing this, because this is going to resonate to quite a few of the audience as well. So John, I this is less of a question, more of a comment to comment. There is a guy named Shadi Ayas. I'm not sure if you heard of him at all. He's a medical doctor from Purcellville that is running against Wexton in primaries. And he's challenging Wexton, and he promises to tackle the opioid crisis, support public education, and to advocate for peace. The reason I brought that issues up on him is because it's kind of funny to me when they say support public education, when they're completely ruining it, like 100% ruining it. And it also is very ironic in this day and age, if they're talking about peace, because as Democrat Party, it has become a party of war since they took in the office. What's your take? What's your take about this guy, if you even heard of him?
Well, I think he dropped out.
He did? Okay.
On that. So I haven't heard hide or hair from him since he went up, other than saying, "Nope, Jennifer Wexton is who he's going to support." He just wanted to get his message out that Democrats need to focus on other policies.
Okay.
Good on him for coming out talking about the opioid crisis, because last week there was a report on WTOP that said America surpassed 107,000 drug overdoses, which is the most in history.
Wow.
So Joe Biden's record with Wexton support is not one of those things that they probably want to highlight. But if I'm lucky enough to be the general candidate, then I will go after those, because a lot of those come from the border. A lot of the ingredients come from China. It's bad enough, they unleashed COVID that killed a lot of our seniors. Now they're shipping over drugs that are killing our youth. So it's us in the middle who have to stand up, stand strong, stand firm, and make sure the right policies are written, are passed, so we can get our country back from these people.
I always say, what a deadly strategy to destroy this great nation. I mean, you're using communist China, its money, its power to kind of kill our seniors, as you said, and you're using these weak borders to kind of kill our youth by bringing in opiates. I mean, it's just a deadly combination, and I feel sad. My heart aches for this great nation that I came in, and I want to continue to serve and be part of this nation. So, John, along with me, there are like tons of ethnic groups in your congressional district. I mean, I'm sure as a candidate you would have dig deep into demographics. There are 15% Asians. It's about 7% non-Hispanic, and 29.4% of the households speak a different language other than English is not their first language. So, what's your outreach strategy? Because you need all of these. You need them in primaries, but you also need them in general.
Yeah.
So what is the strategy?
So a couple of things. We have friends from all backgrounds. We have Vietnamese friends who we served with at church. Our kids were on junior Bible quiz together. They've got an outreach team for the general. I have a really good buddy of mine who's a retired colonel out of the Army. His wife's Puerto Rican, and great Spanish speaking, just very level-headed a woman of faith who's going to do the Hispanic outreach. And then my wife and I were actually children's pastors for 2.5 years at Word of Life Assembly of God over in Springfield. So that's about 83 different nationalities that we're still tied into. So being able to leverage that experience and their people and those people and their experience to be able to bring in to say, hey, look, we're going to be the most inclusive because we share the same values. That's the strategy, and I think that's going to be a winning strategy. And we have some great Muslim friends as well who are going to come beside us in the general. We'll do a lot of outreach in Ashburn and go into these communities, because what Republicans have not done in the past is go into these communities and talk to these people, because all they see is Democrats knocking on their door saying Republicans are bad, and without ever meeting us. So I want them to meet us. I want them to have I want to have a dialogue and a conversation with them. I want to know what their issues are, because I guarantee they're going to line up with what we in the Republican Party and the conservative movement agree with. That's faith, that's family, and that's freedom. And that's making sure that we're doing what we need to do for the outreach on those. So that's kind of the grand strategy of what we're going to use going forward. It's going to be a multi-ethnicity, multi-pronged approach, and it's going to be built on honesty, integrity, and engagement.
John, I'm glad you said about Democrats. We let Democrats dictate the narrative. They went knocking the doors. They go to citizenship trainings. They go to immigration forums and say that Republicans are bad. We should have dictated our own narrative versus let them dictate us. And I'm glad. I mean, I always say in order to solve the problem, we need to acknowledge the problem. And candidates such as you are coming out and acknowledging the problem. That's a big step. In order for us to come across as inclusive and embracing, because we are those people. We don't have to pretend we are those people. So John, along the same lines, again, you're running against strong opponents, like folks that were in school board. A couple of your opponents were in council members. They were board of supervisors. So if our viewers are watching you, and I'm going to share this video in multiple forums, what sets you apart from them, and why do you think you will drive a victory in general? I mean, why should they let go of people that have already won before in some form of races and choose you over them?
Well, one, I know this is a calling I have to step forward and make a difference. So it's not just me; it's God as well. I know He's directed our steps. He's being able to bring us to engage with people that we never would have met had we not taken this journey. But if you look at across the candidates, no other candidate has congressional experience. I have 5 years of congressional experience. I already have great friends on the Hill, on the Freedom Caucus, the Jim Jordan side of Freedom Caucus, Scott Perry, that's what Ralph Norman is. He's current Freedom Caucus, Jim Bridenstine, Dave Bratt, former Freedom Caucus. And then, we also have good friends on the Senate side as well. We have good friends within the professional staff. So if you want a candidate who's accomplished, again, I helped draft legislation that created the United States Space Force. I know how to do it. I know how to work in a pragmatic way. That had to be a bipartisan. So being able to sit down and have those conversations with Republicans and Democrats on, hey, here's how we get to a solution. Here's the threat. Here's the legislative proposal. And then it gets passed. And we have the United States Space Force now, and a couple other entities. One's the Space Rapid Capabilities Office, that builds classified space capabilities for the nation. So if you want someone who's ready to go in day one, someone who's not going to be bought, someone who's not going to be compromised. I had my career. I don't need another career. I'm only stepping forward because of what we've seen over the past year. It's time for leaders, not politicians. And I know that my wife and my family will hold me accountable, and I know the constituency will hold me accountable, as they should, if I ever backtrack, which I won't backtrack. My word is my bond. Integrity, excellent service, those things have been traits that have been invested in me by many leaders over a 28-year Air Force career. And I'm not going up to Congress to be part of them. I'm going up there to hopefully make a difference for men and women and children here in the 10th District, and more importantly, the United States of America. That's why I'm stepping up. That's why you should vote for me on Saturday, May 21st, so that we can start this general and go after Jennifer Wexton for all her votes. No one has the depth of expertise that I have on all the issues that she's voted on. I've been involved across the board, and that's kind of where we're going to go.
Hey, John, I think I'm glad you kind of were able to differentiate and articulate why people should vote for you, regardless of who is on the ballot at this point. So, John, I know you have another engagement at 7. We are coming to the end of the show. I think our audience very much understand the kitchen table issues. They understand the meaning of your slogan. They understand the sentiment that came along with the slogan. I'm sure they're very pleased with the incredible people that endorsed you. So in the last minute or two, tell our audience, if I missed asking you anything, I try to cover the issues. I want to portray to our constituents of what issues you're taking on and why you will be the right candidate for Wexton. But if I missed anything, take a minute and talk that through to our audience.
Well, I think, as we've seen, right before the 2020 election, we saw the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop. So being able to get into as a member of Congress, being able to reform Section 230, which gave carte blanche authority or immunity to big tech companies to allow them to do what they're doing now. Now, that was passed in 1996 under the Communication Decency Act. I want to reform that Section 230 to where these big tech companies can be held accountable, they can be held liable, they can get sued. Right now, they have full immunity so that they stay out of our elections. Then I also want to look at election integrity. The 2,000 mules issue. Molly Hemingway wrote a book called Rigged. I think that needs to be looked into to see what happened. Those, especially on those video surveillance cameras that were, they're owned by the state. They weren't just placed there by someone trying to do a documentary. So we need to find out what happened in the 2020 election so that it doesn't happen again. If there was fraud, if there was something else. I think there was fraud, but it doesn't matter what I think, it's what I can prove. And I think we need an independent commission to be able to look at those things so that it doesn't become a systemic issue that Democrats are going to continue to exploit because Republicans were too weak to address it. So we've got to take that head on. And then we have to make sure the border is secured, which means if that means blocking funding for certain aspects of the Department of Homeland Security until that border is secure, if that means holding Mayorkas accountable for his lack of action and his violation of his oath of office, which could lead to impeachment for him and removal, then I'm all for that, because we should not have as many issues at the border as we've had for the past 1.5 months, or 1 year, 5 months now. It's got to be fixed. It's going to take leadership, and I promise you that I will take that on.
John, thank you so much. I'm glad I gave you that 1 minute because you were able to talk about so many more issues that I personally care about. Election integrity is a big deal for me. I'm glad you kind of caught up on that. 2,000 mules was an eye-opener, especially with regards to geo-tracking issues that we always thought, but which is so true. So I thank you for joining us. You have another engagement. I know this is a very tight schedule. I thank you for taking the time to come on the show. It's a lot of commitment. And last but not the least, I do want to thank you for serving our nation. And I look forward to your leadership. If you win in primaries, I look forward to your leadership in Congress. And otherwise, I look forward to your leadership in just whatever form that you're able to, because you have so much of skill set that you can continue to utilize.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This was a wonderful conversations, viewer. I wish John Henley the very best in primaries. John, if you are the chosen candidate, hope you come by. So again, one more time, so we can get deep into some of the issues that are plaguing our country, and especially Jennifer Wexton's policies. I want to like dissect and let candidates articulate and say why they're bad for our nation. So I hope you come by once you win your primaries.
Oh, absolutely. And even if I don't win the primary, you know, we're going to back who up, whatever the candidate is, and we're going to make them the strongest candidates to go against Jennifer Wexton. Because at the end of the day, this is bigger than one candidate. This is about the United States of America, and we have to get it back.
I love the spirit. I love this. That's what patriots do. And that's what God-loving people do. So viewers, this Saturday, May 21st is the day that John Henley will be on the ballot for primaries. So if you are in 10th Congressional District, or even if you're not, please let your friends in 10th Congressional. It's a large congressional district. So I'm sure each one of us have about 10 people that we know. Please ask them to listen to these conversations that count, support John Henley if they agree with his policies, and then hope to see you at those locations. Also on May 21st, I run an immigration and minority coalitions at Fairfax GOP headquarters. We have those meetings to ensure that we're strategizing our engagement. So if you are one of those minority and engagement interested person, please do come in and or just Facebook message me and tell that you want to come in, and I'll send you all the details. Last but not the least, at 7 p.m. on Conversations That Count on Saturday, I will have Stephen Sutton. Stephen is a senior vice president at Leadership Institute. We're going to talk to him as well. Have a wonderful evening. Have a great evening. God bless John Henley and his family. I know his wife is working as a team very, very hard, thanks to his kids, 2 children that are serving our nation as well. God bless your family, Mr. Henley, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.